As the purple sunset fades, are we really here alone on the main street of the world, sheltering in our homes, and all that's real seems so far away, sacrificing tomorrow for yesterday. There's a heartbeat louder than thunder, revolution is in the air. There's a heartbeat deep inside our mother. Are you too cool to care? Thank you, Dakota.
Happy Mother Earth Day.
That's my daughter, Dakota. Her sisters and brothers are on their 4th week of distance learning, and they're scoring A's and finding ways to be creative and communicate with their friends. So all is well on the home front.
That was so beautiful, Robby.
Thank you, Patricia.
Hello. Happy Mother Earth Day, everybody.
Yes, happy Mother Earth Day. It's quite a day. It's an extraordinary time, unprecedented. But I believe it's a preview of what's to come in this decade, as we have in so many ways failed to heed the warnings of nature, of our ancestors, of we the indigenous peoples, and of our traditional and modern scientists. So we find ourselves with a little pandemic to practice.
Yeah, I remember when this first started happening, I called you and you said, Mother Nature is giving us this to practice. Because when we talk about climate change, so many people say, oh, we can't make those changes. We can't change the way that we're doing things. But the truth is, we have to change the way that we're doing things. Or this is going to look like nothing. This is going to look like, you know, something much easier to deal with than what we have coming. And I feel like we're going to, and I know we're going to have more pandemics and food insecurity and many other horrible things if we don't deal with this now.
You know, I agree with you. It's amazing to me because in 1990, you know, on the west steps of the Capitol at Earth Day, 25th anniversary, there were many warnings given. There were many messages of hope, you know, messages about, you know, what we are going to experience if we don't kick this fossil fuel habit, if we don't, you know, follow the great laws of nature, and if we don't support the rights of indigenous peoples, where more than 80% of the world's biodiversity, you know, lives. And, you know, our people are on the front lines, from Alaska to the Amazon and across, you know, 7 regions. There's more than 450 million indigenous peoples living in 7 regions of the world, speaking more than 4,000 languages. And a lot of us have been on the front lines, you know, giving warnings. I remember years ago, you know, in the 80s, I had the honor and the opportunity to travel with Thomas Binyaka, who was a Hopi translator of their prophecies. And he talked about the warnings of their prophecies. And he talked about, if we don't listen to the warnings, that, you know, this world will be destroyed just as previous worlds were destroyed. And I think we're in that decade. We're in a critical time now where there's been so many meetings and so many conferences, and so many of our people have been arrested and incarcerated and murdered at alarming rates, who have stood up for the rights of Mother Earth, for the rights of indigenous peoples who care for the earth and still have a direct contact and relationship with Mother Earth and all our relations. And you know, here we are now. So it is a preview, and I think we need to get ready for this new normal, and we need to unite, you know, with one voice and stop the madness, you know, and really, you know, think about our footprint, think about how we relate to each other and relate to the earth, our mother.
Well, Robby and I first met many years ago through a mutual friend, Roland Joffe, and another mutual friend, Dennis Hopper. And then Robby introduced me to Dennis Banks, so there's been a lot of powerful Dennises around our friendship. And then you brought us to Standing Rock, because my organization, I'm an actor, but I also have an organization called Give Love, and we do ecological sanitation, which we started to do after the earthquake in Haiti in 2010. And now we work in multiple countries across the world, and often with indigenous groups of people. In South America with WaterAid, we work with the Wayuu tribe, and then we just started a project with this. We're about to do one with the Samburu, and we also have one with the Maasai, and you had us come to Standing Rock. And you called me and said that you were concerned because you're water protectors, but what you discovered was they were taking this untreated waste and dumping it because it's often too far to drive to waste treatment facilities. So a lot of people don't know that a lot of times if it's too far to drive this toilet material to waste treatment facilities, it's often just dumped into waterways. So this is why across the world what we see is the illness from the lack of sanitation and waterborne disease kills more kids under 5 than AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria combined. So the health impact is enormous. 3/4 of all the beds in hospitals in Africa are from diarrheal diseases. These kids have very little nutrients, many of them, yet they have parasites that eat the nutrients first. And it's this never-ending cycle. The moms, sometimes there's single moms and they're petty traders and they're working, and then they can't go to work because they have kids with these cycles of diarrhea and parasites. And girls drop out of school because they have no bathrooms. Women get raped going to the bathroom. Animals attack people going to the bathroom outside. Girls drop out because they have nowhere to deal with their menstrual needs. These are all real issues that people have to deal with. And there's the climate change aspect. For us, we've always seen this kind of cycle and how it all connects together. So we provide people with sanitation. We take the toilet material, we treat it with thermophilic composting. It heats it up, it kills all the pathogens, and you end up with compost. And why is that important right now? Well, we have desertification. Thousands of acres are turning into deserts every year. We have to amend soil. And if we amend soil and we rebuild the soil and the nutrient content, we can grow things. And when we grow things, we can pull carbon out of the atmosphere, which will help us with climate change. So we can draw down carbon. We can also stop a lot of pollution because it's estimated that half of the pollution in big cities in India would be cut back drastically if they weren't just burning agricultural leftover products. We could recycle these products, and instead of them creating this poison and pollution, we could recycle that, draw the carbon down. So right now, this solution I don't think works for everything, but what it does is ease the burden in multiple areas. Helps us clean and protect waterways, helps with human health, can help us build soil, draw down carbon, stop gender-based violence. These are all really important things. And I think when we look for solutions right now, because we have multiple system breakdown coming at us like a tidal wave, we have to look at systems that address multiple areas and help ease the burden in multiple areas. Robby, you talk.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. There are real solutions to the climate crisis. unfortunately, you know, these real solutions are being bought up and hoarded and kept from the public, from world citizens, because the fossil foolish industry wants to suck up every last drop of Mother Earth's natural resources, her blood, before they change the infrastructure to allow real solutions to climate change and to this climate crisis. And I just believe that, you know, like in Indian country right now, this pandemic, you know, is hitting Indian country hard here on Turtle Island and all over the world. I mean, back in 2016, indigenous peoples, indigenous tribal nations in Louisiana became the first climate refugees. And I think that climate refugees, and the term climate refuge, is going to be a term you're going to hear a lot in this decade, as human beings are displaced from their natural habitats, from their natural homes, from their territories. And I also, you know, think it's important that we understand the impacts of climate change, like this pandemic, when it comes to Indian country. The Dene people, or Navajo people as you may know them, here in New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, they have, you know, an outrageous amount of COVID-19 cases, you know, considering their population. They are more than 1,300 cases right now, and the death toll is up to 45 today and growing. And this is alarming because we need to protect, you know, our people. We don't have the population mass that others have, and we have a very, very different relationship with the United States of America and other nations. You know, they like to refer to us as sovereign and nation to nation, and we are sovereign, but they don't treat us that way. They like to, you know, keep us under their thumb, and that's got to change, you know. And that's why I think it's very, very important that that we understand that protecting the rights of indigenous peoples is protecting Mother Earth and protecting all of us from this climate crisis.
Well,
Go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say, Robby, you were saying to me the other day that one of the first legal acts of environmental, you know, legal cases was in England, and it was because the Thames was being so polluted with human waste or excrement, that was the first legal environment.
I'm sorry. Yeah, they enacted the first, you know, major scale environmental laws. And then we saw some major scale environmental laws here on Turtle Island that were enacted by the United States in the late 60s and 70s, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act. But that environmental law, or group of laws that was enacted by Britain at the beginning, you know, were exactly because people were dying from human waste in the water. And that's why your work is so important to me. That's why I called you. I think you were in Africa when I called, working with indigenous peoples there. And I called you and said, you know, come to Standing Rock because we need safe, clean sanitation, you know, for our camp. Our camp was, you know, going from a few thousand people up to 15,000 people. Winter was coming, and there was no way porta potties with chemical use being dumped in water is any real way to deal with the situation. And also, you know, I remember that, you know, at first, you know, my fellow water protectors in the camp, you know, some were resistant to the idea of having to deal with our own waste, which is something that most people in so-called first world countries don't have to deal with. But on reservations across Indian country here on Turtle Island, it's not the first world or the second world or the third world. We have some of the poorest communities in North America. And, you know, clean and safe water and sanitation and access to healthcare, access to opportunity, access to food security, all of these things are critical in Indian country. And so when you came up there and did that, you know, eventually, you know, as soon as they started to use these compost toilets, we built, well, I shouldn't say we, Patricia and
Yeah,
her
we did.
team,
We did.
Patricia and her team built 5 big, beautiful compost blocks, we called them. They were big tents. And as that winter came, you know, the elders were coming to me and they were saying, man, those toilets are awesome. You don't smell anything in there. And it's not hard to deal with our own shit. Yes. And, you know, and I remember it was just this beautiful, like, renaissance of like, wow, we can deal with this and we can do it in a good way and we can do it on our own. And, you know, by midwinter, by November, December, those toilet blocks that Patricia and Give Love and her team built became the hangout. I walked into one of them and they were all hanging out around the stove fire that we had there to keep everything warm, and playing music and guitars and drums and singing traditional songs and modern songs. And it was just a beautiful scene. And in those last days, those last sad days when we got raided and the military force was coming across 1851 treaty land to push us back into the reservation, one of our great warriors, you know, a young man that I admire so much, and he was helping us with the compost toilet project, the Give Love compost toilet project. And the last thing he tweeted before he faded out into the tree lines of the reservation, he tweeted, "As long as the toilets are up, the camp is alive." Meanwhile, all this other footage on the news was like, those crazy Indians, you know, they're painted and they're, you know, they're saying all kinds of stuff about us. But one thing that happened, and I'm very proud of, is that at the end of it all, they were trying to get us for being, you know, heathens and savages and not having clean sanitation or food, and, you know, trying to find some way to dehumanize us. And I got a call from Allison Tubals from the, is that her correct name? Am I saying it correctly?
Two Bears.
Two Bears, that's right. Allison Two Bears, who was amazing to work with. And she was from the Water and Resources Department at Standing Rock Sioux Tribe and the EPA. And she called me and she said, you know what, Robby? They didn't find one thing. We were clean. And she thanked me. And of course I called Patricia and Elisa and her team and thanked them. And, you know, so it was a beautiful project. And I look forward to doing more of those kind of projects, real solutions to environmental challenges that we face, whether it's in our communities or it's local, you know, national, global. I mean, we can change the world if we change our consciousness, if we change how we look at our relationship with the natural world.
I also want to say, I think it's really important to make sure that, again, during this process, that we bring in as much Indigenous leadership as we possibly can. You guys have been going to the UN. You presented to the UN the rights of the earth. Long before people were really talking about this. You've been fighting for the rights of the earth, the water, for so long, for our mother for so long. It's integral to you. It is an authentic part of your culture and your fight and your history. And so I think that really has to make sure that our Indigenous people are front, supported, and given real big voices in this movement, because they've been saying this forever. I also wanted to say, you know, I've been working in sanitation, in toilets, in shit, okay? Nobody wants to deal with their shit. No one wants to talk about their shit. I'm an actress. Everyone's like, water, clean water, woo, water's sexy. Let's have water. Everyone needs water. Well, the number one pollutant to water is the lack of sanitation. So stop talking about water until you talk about the shit that's in the water, and get the shit out of the water. That's how you're going to help clean up water. And, you know, I thought, okay, well, I came from punk rock. Yeah, I'm an actress today, but I'm punk rock enough to deal with shit. I mean, I really am. And somebody has to. And what are we learning right now in this pandemic? People are flipping out because they don't have toilet paper. Because guess what? You have to eat, you have to shit, and you have to sleep somewhere. These are the things that we essentially need to do, and we always have had to do these things. So we have to address them. Let's stop ignoring that people shit. Let's stop pretending that this isn't getting people sick. Let's stop pretending that this couldn't be part of the solution, because it can. It can be part of the solution. So let's stop ignoring it and start bringing it to the table and understanding that we have to address all of these problems all at once, and that this part of it is not going away.
I remember what Crazy Horse said. He said, I see a time in 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the great tree of life, and the whole world will become one circle again. And that's what we need to move forward to.
I love you, Robby, and I'm so grateful, and I'm so thankful to be on this journey with you and with all the great activists who are doing beautiful work and saluting our mother and kissing our Mother Earth and thanking her for her bounty and all that she's given us, and we should be responsible children. And I'm so grateful that you introduced me to all of these incredible people at Standing Rock. And all of it's a big and an important part of our mission at Give Love to work with Indigenous groups, because other things that we're seeing are, there's some people that are traditionally nomadic people, and they move around with their herds, and their herds they trade when their daughters get married, and that is their wealth, is their livestock. And they move around with their livestock as they have for thousands of years. But now, as they move through their traditional lands, it's being seized by governments for mining, for different things, and they come back, their land's not theirs legally anymore. These groups also are being shoved to certain areas because of climate change, because there's no water anymore for their herds. They're being shoved into certain areas, and often they don't have any sanitation at all, which gives them a very high infant mortality rate. These are our original peoples. These are the most beautiful cultures on earth, and we have to maintain them, and we have to make sure that we support them so that they survive through this time. So at givelove.org, it's a very important component to us, and you have been our incredible partner and taught us so much, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Patricia. I love you too, and I love the work that you do, and the work that you do on behalf of Indigenous peoples and all our relations. You know, I just wanted to say that, you know, right now, you know, they were trying, the extractive industry was trying to build pipelines in the midst of this pandemic to, you know, while everyone was distracted. And luckily it got stopped by the hard work of our youth, our Indigenous activists, our water protectors, defenders of land and life, and we got the Keystone XL pipeline stopped for the moment. But they're still trying to build pipelines and breaking, you know, distance, social distancing up in Wet'suwet'en territory in British Columbia, you know, where there are several camps up there where they are fighting to protect their Indigenous rights, their laws, and the great laws of nature, and stop these man camps, you know, which come along with the pipelines, which have a direct connection to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and LGBT and, you know, transgender people. And, you know, all of this is connected, just as all life is connected. And it's time to put an end to these things. It's time to like wake up and say, look, you know, we're all in this together. You know, what I breathe out, you breathe in. And, you know, it's like we're drinking the same water. There is no new water. We're all born in water, but there is no new water. You know, so if we don't take care of ourselves, of each other, embrace each other, and celebrate the colors of life, celebrate all our relations, celebrate our connection, you know, to each other, we're going to see some hard times in this next decade. And so my love and my prayers goes out to all of our relations, all of our people around the world who are suffering from this pandemic, who have lost life, and it goes out to you and your family, Patricia, and all the work you're doing, your team, and Elisa, and all those incredible people. And you know, my heart's with you, and I just have nothing but love for you, and have nothing but love for our human race, for our family, and I have hope.
Mm.
I've been in this a long time. I know that we can rise above. I know we can shift the paradigm and change, you know, how we're looking at things, and create a safe and sustainable world for the generations to come.
Elisa, our program director, said, you know, if everyone had a flush toilet in the world, there wouldn't be a drop of water to drink. So we're trying to force this kind of either pit latrines, which were a temporary war measure for dealing with sanitation, and they often leach into the water table or overflow or collapse the whole buildings, you know. So it's a false solution where compost sanitation is waterless. So you're just using the water to wash your hands. You're not using it for your toilet material. So again, Elisa said that, you know, this is insanity. What kind of people shit into pristine, clear water? That's what we do. That's our norm. And we have to look at it. When 2.5 billion people have no access to toilets, more people have cell phones in the world than toilets. And this is supposed to be one of our UN goals. So we need to come together. We have to think of sanitation as part of the problem and solution that we need to work with here when we're talking about a Mother Earth, and we're talking about ecology, and we're talking about environmentalism. We have to look at what this is, the impact this is really having. I love you, Robby, and I'm excited to be on this journey with you. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this beautiful day with all these great people. And yeah, it's a weird time. Here we are, guys.
You know, thank you, Patricia. I love you too. And you know, as we all practice social distancing, as we, you know, implement best practices, you know, to keep ourselves, our families, our communities, the world safe, you know, take time to, you know, to sing in harmony, to you know, walk in beauty upon the earth, and feel the heartbeat of your mother. Reconnect so that we can all dance to the same melody.
Beautiful. Thank you, Robby.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.